onto your butt.
Wait a minute, Doc.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Hold up just a minute. This is Chase, Kyle, and Andrew, and we're bringing you another short episode. Right, Andrew?
Yeah. Super short.
Super short. Maybe.
Shorter than the last one, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Because I'm hungry.
Are you?
I'm starved.
Are you starved? You just had
Yes.
2 protein bars.
Yeah, but what have I had to eat the rest of the day?
I have no idea.
Exactly.
You're a grown
so you
man.
have no idea.
You're a grown man. You should have been able to feed yourself at your own home where you work. What did you have for breakfast and lunch?
I only had late breakfast.
Of what?
4 eggs, some chicken sausage.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I had scrambled eggs, a couple pieces of chicken sausage, and some toast. That's it.
What have you had since then?
A bowl, 2 bowls of cereal,
2 bowls of cereal.
Rice Krispies, and then
Okay.
those 2. That's it.
Do you want to know what I've had to eat today?
No.
You don't want to know, or you don't know?
I don't know. How would I know?
I woke up and I had a couple slices of mango. I had 2 of those, which you know how good they are, the birthday cake
Oh, yeah.
Kit Kats. I had
so-
2 little fingers of those.
Those are great.
I had a 32 ounce of water with electrolytes in it, and that was breakfast. And then for lunch, I don't eat lunch, so I didn't have lunch. Okay, but after I was done working out, I had a protein shake. Okay. And then nothing.
I've had a pack of Marlboro Reds and a sleeve of Oreo cookies.
And some American Spirit and some Skull, baby. I went out to the Tesco and I started dipping. What a good time.
Hey, we're off to a great start.
We're
on topic.
We are really on topic here because today we're talking about ratings.
Yay.
We love to rate
I
things.
rate Andrew's day a 10 out of 10. I think he had a great day. That's
Sounded
what I
like he did.
I mean, it was a pretty solid day.
Certified
I woke up
fresh.
pretty happy.
Except
so.
he's starved right now with his high protein breakfast. That he
I mean,
had.
I have always gotten lower blood sugar if I don't eat enough, and it hits me harder the most.
We're
so.
getting off trail here. So
It's true. I don't know if I'm hypoglycemic or what,
oh,
but
you're diabetic, baby. You're in it.
I mean, I could be.
You're going to chop your foot off.
Never been tested, so.
So today we're looking at ratings. We're going to compare Rotten Tomatoes with IMDb. I know this is a subject out in the movie world. Kyle, how do you use rating systems?
Sparingly. And not really at all, if we're being honest. I usually go by word of mouth, or if I see a trailer that doesn't give away the goat in the first couple frames, or if it's a franchise that I like Alien or Star Wars. Not a lot of those anymore. I'll probably watch it. When it comes down to like how good is it, if it's something that I know came out a while ago, if I'm looking for a good movie, I don't want to be upset, I'll look. But for the most part, I'm not really getting on Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb to go, oh my God, what did everybody else say about it? I need to know what they said about it so I can make my decision about it, because I don't fucking care what most people think, because most people are fucking idiots.
Andrew, how do you use your ratings?
Strong words there, Kyle. I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out what's going to be a shitty movie and what's actually going to be worth your while. There are some times, like if I'm debating on whether I want to go spend money in the theaters, I'll log on to IMDb and see what the recent average is. Like within a week or like a couple days, a movie's been released, you can see kind of like a baseline of what the movie is. And so sometimes I'll do a little cheating to see if it's worth my time, because I do think those ratings are fairly accurate, truth be told. Some are off, some are right on the money. It's hit or miss with some, but I think overall a lot will give you a pretty good look into whether the movie's worth watching. So if there's something in the theaters that I want to see and I'm just kind of unsure about it, I'll hop on and see how the numbers hold up.
The reason we're bringing this up is because someone asked us about why we use IMDb ratings on our full-length shows when we talk about the movies and if they hold up. I know that ratings are sometimes everything for how a movie is perceived, and that's not always the case, because this is art, right? It is subjective. It is
Very subjective.
And it's hard to rate anything, but I wanted to talk about IMDb versus Rotten Tomatoes, how you could use them, because there is so much content right now in this world. You could... you don't want to waste your time going in and watching something that's a complete dud, or if it's terrible. And how do you know that going into it, other than kind of looking at these ratings as a guide? To Kyle's point, there's certain movies that you I've already locked in your head, I'm going to watch that. I'm going to watch it. Even if it's shit, you're going to watch it. And I get that. But I do kind of use some of these ratings sometimes if I am interested in a movie, but I haven't completely like locked myself into going to see it yet. And it's in movies are what, 14 hours now?
Yeah,
you got to
like
take
that.
time off work to go see it.
Then you have to watch. You have to watch the ones that came before it too.
Yeah.
And the ones that are going to happen.
You have to
as a
watch the
prequel,
TV shows,
sequestering,
read the books.
Yeah.
It seems like if
Talk
a
to a
movie is
horseman.
under 3 hours, it's wrong.
frowned upon.
Yeah.
There's just it's so hard to fill up that kind of screen time with stuff that you want to watch.
Yeah, sometimes it works. Like, I mean, I could have sat through 6 hours of Dune if I'm being honest, but like, you know, there's some like the Batman was so fucking long, long. I was like,
We're not even going to get into that.
you could have shaved off 45 minutes there.
I mean, even Oppenheimer was like,
Yeah.
I thought that was verging on too long of a movie. It was a good movie, but when we saw that, Andrew, like, I was just kind of like,
wasn't it 3.5 hours?
it was like 3 hours, fucking long.
I didn't mind Oppenheimer. Honestly, I was pretty into it. But like The Irishman, that's another one. That's one I
very
think.
long.
I think Oppenheimer's 3. I think Irishman is like 3.5, almost 3:40. That was way too long.
You can
sorry.
make these into two different movies, and you can build hype up if you do it right. But it's not being done like that. It's becoming like a sport. How much can you sit through in some of these movies? And I think that like when it comes down to like the duration of these movies and where it's kind of leading, like you need to be a little bit more in tune with what you're watching because you don't want to fucking sit through a 3-hour movie if you're waiting for something good to happen. Why not just look at what somebody else has said about it and make your decision from that? I understand that to a degree.
3 hours is a big investment. I think
long time.
2.5 hours is a big
Yeah.
investment of my time. So it's
is.
like if I'm going to go in and, I mean, Megapolis, huge disaster from critics and audiences alike. And that was about 3 hours, I think. So do you want to go waste 3 hours of your life and be upset and be further like in the hole because you're going to spend time thinking about how terrible that movie was? No, you don't want to do that. No. So Andrew, I want you to start us off. So talk about IMDb. How did those ratings come about?
So it all comes from viewers. It's pretty much from anyone. I'm pretty sure that critics can log in and give.
It's anybody.
It's anyone. As long as you have an IMDb account, you can give a rating 1 out of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 being the best, obviously, and it's just an average of all of those ratings for whoever gives them.
Pretty straightforward with IMDb.
It's very straightforward.
It is literally like other movie lovers telling you what they think, and
Yeah.
they're compiling that score up.
Now, I will say you can only give a whole number rating. You can't give like a 7.5. It can only be a 7, an 8, so on and so forth. The numbers that you do see is the average. So it could be a decimal. It could be 7.3. It could be 8.1. Sometimes it will land on an even, 8 or a whole number, but most times it's a decimal.
Right. And you'll notice that like IMDb scores are sometimes a lot lower than what you expect in your head too.
Yeah.
And it's because audiences are usually the harder critics than
Yeah,
actual
they are.
critics themselves.
Yeah.
Critics will group together like birds of a feather, and they will probably rate the stuff that they feel high class about,
Yes.
even if it's good or bad, and they'll rate it high. And again, we talked about horror being a low-brow form. I mean, critics always hate on it. Like
Critics and even audience
Yeah.
viewers, they do as well.
very, very
Well, because it makes
critical.
people uncomfortable, and anything that's actually worthwhile looking at in sidebar. In a lot of these horror movies are like you're going to have to watch some gritty shit to get there, and a lot of people don't have the stomach for that.
No.
Yeah, and I do think horror is super, super subjective, where most people understand a drama when they see it. Most people see a comedy or understand a comedy when they see it. Andrew loves paranormal horror a lot. I'm not a big fan. It doesn't really do much for me. But that could lead to different ratings from
Exactly,
two
for
different
sure.
people. Whereas a comedy, again, is pretty straightforward. Everyone's going to be, even if you don't have the same sense of humor, if it is funny enough and you chuckle at it, you're going to get a laugh. I think horror is one end of the spectrum, and people also like to puff out their chest and be like, "Oh, that didn't scare me at all."
Yeah.
And so they rate things that way.
Yeah, it
Instead
wasn't
of
a jump
looking-
scare. It didn't make me do this or that. Like
It wasn't a
I'm
James
going to
Wan
rate
film.
this lower now because I want to feel a certain way about this particular thing.
And there's a difference, everybody, between being startled and actually being scared. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about Rotten Tomatoes. So Rotten Tomatoes is compiled into two different scores. It's critic scores and audience scores. So that's different from IMDb, where they lump it all together in IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes really takes critic scores into consideration. And that's where you get the certified fresh or the certified rotten cute little sticker on a movie.
Are
if it
they
does.
averaging the critic and audience score to get the tomato score?
Yeah, they're averaging the critics together. And it's not out of the realm of possibility to see a certified fresh audience score and then see a
It's happened a couple times.
certified
right?
rotten. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of movies that audiences love that critics hated. Andrew, look up Ghostbusters. Look up Afterlife.
Do you want me to do this on Rotten Tomatoes?
On Rotten Tomatoes. What they do is they take favorable reviews in Rotten Tomatoes and they build out a percentage, right? Yeah. So it says 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. That means critics are 90% favorable. That doesn't mean that critics rated this movie 9 out of 10. A favorable review for you, Kyle.
If it's a binary choice, favorable or not favorable, that's kind of misleading, right?
Right. Well, and it's
the choices are one or the other. It's not like, oh, I thought it was this amount of good. It's, was it good or was it bad? Was it good? Cool. And then 90% of people, 90 people out of 100 go, it was good. 9
out of 10 critics may be like, it was watchable, which, I mean, that sounds like a 6 out of 10, but you get a 90% score on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah. So Rotten Tomatoes should just be used as a score of, is it favorable? And there's a 90% chance that you'll like the movie at least. That's kind of how Rotten Tomatoes builds out.
So for Ghostbusters Afterlife, we have the tomato meter, which is the critics, and that is at 64%.
Okay.
Whereas the popcorn meter, which is audience, is 94%.
And that's exactly where I'm coming through. Is 99 out of 10 people from the audience said, yeah, I'd watch that again. And 6 out of 10 critics said that they would watch it again or liked it, vice versa. But in critics' world with Rotten Tomatoes, there's no middle ground, right? It's like you either liked it or you didn't.
And while we're at it, why don't we throw the IMDb rating in for Ghostbusters Afterlife? It is an even 7.0 out of 10.
And that's so interesting because, I classify that movie as very okay. And
I think 7 is on the cusp of okay.
Well, we've given movies that we really like a 7.
Yeah, but I think there's a stark difference between a 7.3 and just a 7. Because to me, a 7 is like 6.8, 6.9. Those are pretty much even in my eyes. So
I look at any movie as 5 is right down the middle. 1 is bad. 10 is perfect, which you'll never get a 10 from me. But
no,
a 5 is right down the middle. So 5 would be meh. 5 is the worst to me.
See, I would 5 is just bad. Yeah, like it's not good. I'm trying to think of something that would like fall into that I could just
right down the middle. That's the worst type of movie. And Tyler, if he's listening, that's what he talks about all the time. Is like, I'd rather you be really bad because that can be entertaining in itself, and I'd rather you obviously be really good because that's entertaining. But when you're just right down the middle, it's really hard to find anything. Yeah. And so 5 to me is right down the middle, and 6 is kind of like decent, and then 7's where you get into this is good.
This is something I'll watch again. Is the 7 territory,
right? And I feel
this
like
is rewatchable.
Yeah,
anything underneath the 7 is not going to be a rewatch value. That's very high. 6 is those movies like, I know it's coming, I get it, or it's just like the performances aren't that great. 5 is not a well thought out movie, poorly directed, not great acting, or a combination of many things. I think a good 5 movie would be The Happening. With Mark Wahlberg, the M. Night Shyamalan movie with Mark Wahlberg, with
probably
the trees killing
is
everybody.
In the 5s.
It's gonna be that's gonna be like right down the middle. Like I would watch that again in another decade to remind myself of what it is. Versus Indiana Jones, any of the first 3, which I would watch.
It's a 3, isn't it?
The Happening is an even 5. Okay. It's 5.0. So
can we just tell everybody how good? Can we just say how good I am really quickly?
You're really good.
Thank you. I'm really good.
So bad.
It's not a great movie, but it is something that you'd want to revisit in like 10 years. Just be like, I want to remember how bad that is. Like I get something out of this. Anything like Indiana Jones, any of the first 3 movies, I can rewatch those any time of year. You know what I mean? Star Wars. Yeah. I can watch those any time of the year. Lord of the Rings. Watch that any time of the year. Rush Hour. I can watch that any time of the year. These are all super bad. I can go on and these are all movies that are going to be above a 7 for sure. So I think for me, 7 is the kind of threshold where we dip into how often am I going to watch this movie versus recommend this to somebody else. And I think that's why we do the show that we do.
I think we're going to ask when we're going to have some guests on, spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
So when we get Derek on too, I want to see how he feels about it, because as someone who makes films, for a living, it's how do you feel when your film gets put into that subjective landscape, where people are judging it based on a number score as opposed to, did they like it or not?
Well, Derek's a great director. He doesn't have to fucking worry about that.
Yeah, everything's a 9.0.
Everything's I know.
I do feel like once I learned that from Rotten Tomatoes, it made kind of looking at Rotten Tomatoes a little easier. Half the time, I know if I'm going to watch it or not without even looking at ratings.
Usually, I'm the same way.
But if I found a movie out there that I'm like, oh, it looks interesting, I will head over to. Usually, I use Letterboxd, but in this case, sometimes I'll look at Rotten Tomatoes.
You're fancy.
I'm fancy.
You're a hipster.
I will look at Rotten Tomatoes and see where the percentages lie, and if there is a huge deviation from audience to critics, just like that, I'll probably end up watching it just to see why there is a difference.
Because critics are good. They're cool. They help sometimes. But the lens that's going to be looked through is I'm getting paid usually to make this a highly formed opinion that, I have an art degree or an English degree, and being able to separate and talk about these themes. And that is good. That is needed for sure.
There's a level of pretension, though, that people don't.
That we don't need that. And we live in a time right now where pretentiousness is not really in style. Like, it's just, that's not really helpful. Bridging the gap between everyday people is kind of like where people are landing at now. And I think that critics still very much need to be a part of the conversation. But it's good to know that a lot of these, critic scores they're going to be looking at things a lot differently than you or I would be looking at them, Like, I didn't go to film school. We went to school at an art school to get our degrees in theater. What was yours? Musical theater, BFA?
No, I was just acting.
Acting. Like, we understand a lot of the basics, but these critics are going to be getting into things that are a little bit above that
They're
pay grade.
so philosophical, and some of them just love to hear themselves.
A lot of it's
speak,
also,
if we're being honest.
yes,
so.
it's a lot of that, and a lot of these people that like to hear themselves talk at a certain point are also people in the film world that are talking about you don't understand the shot that they made with this lens and at this distance and the lighting. And
there's no connection with them and the average human
Not
being.
really.
I wouldn't say there's none, but there's that connection has been fractured.
People know what they like too, and it's entertainment at the end of the day. A lot of people are watching film and TV shows to log off or enjoy and get engrossed in the story that you're telling them. And if it hits with them, it hits with them. It could be a movie that sucks, or somebody could out there want to give The Happening a 9. That they just absolutely enjoyed it.
And I'm sure there probably is someone who has.
And that person's just watching movies the rest of their life because they're not going to be invited to any party or social gathering.
Not one that I'm hosting, no.
They probably
Not at
don't
all.
drive. They probably don't
Probably
cook.
a vegetarian who loves the
Vegan.
trees. Shut up, Chase. You're not vegan.
So I want to play a quick game. So I'm going to give you a movie, and I want to see if you can guess the Rotten Tomato critic score and guess the Rotten Tomato audience score.
I'm going to be bad at this because I never use Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
So.
All right. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Inception.
Inception? Andrew.
Okay, so I'm going to say the popcorn meter, which is audience, is 95% plus. So it could be anywhere from 95 to 100. And I bet the tomato meter, the critic score is 77% or something like that. 75%, somewhere in that range. That's
Kyle,
my
do you wanna
guess.
take a guess on that?
I know that people love that movie, so I'm going to say around 90 to 93%. 90 to 93% for the people. And then for the critics, I'm going to say probably I'm going to say 80, 81%.
So critics said 87%.
Oh, damn, that's high.
And then audience was 91%.
Damn.
91.
91? Yeah.
So 91% for Inception, but 94% Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right.
One's a little more heady than the other, even though it's pretty.
What are you talking
it's pretty
about?
simple.
So I bet the IMDB is 8.8 or something like that, or 8.9.
Something like that. What about The Empire Strikes Back, Kyle?
Empire Strikes Back. People fucking love that movie. It's better than the first, so I'm going to say audience score around 95%. Critic score, I think that's going to be high too. I think that's probably going to be 86%.
Okay. Andrew.
Yeah. I don't want to deviate too much because I don't want to just be a contrarian. I agree with him. I would say 96% popcorn meter, and then we'll say 89% for a tomato meter.
Okay. 95% on critic score, and then it was 97%.
So, yeah. Okay.
Everybody ubiquitously loved.
So now
we went low on that.
we're going to start getting
higher.
into some. We're going to deviate. Those are two. Some of the best movies of all time. Yeah, I'm throwing you guys a huge curveball with this one. What about RoboCop 2?
Ooh, Robo 2?
2.
Oh, this is good. Audience score, I'm going to say, was probably like a 70. I'm going to say 68 to 70%. And then the critic score is going to be like, probably like 20 to 30%, somewhere in there.
Okay.
I can't get into specifics. I've never seen it before.
I'll say audience score is like 70. I'm just gonna go like 75%, and I'll say that's popcorn meter, tomato meter. Critics, I'll say 43%.
I'll start with the audience score. The audience score is 37%.
Oh, okay, damn.
People didn't like this movie, and and the critic score is 28%.
Okay.
So I could have gone down a few notches for each.
We were both a little
Yeah.
off.
A little off. So now we're gonna go to the next one, The Fox and the Hound.
Ooh,
Interesting. That's
okay.
a really
This
old
is one of my
movie, dude.
favorite Disney movies.
It's
of
a
all
great-
time.
Very
Yeah.
sad movie.
Very sad, very heavy.
But
So
it doesn't matter what you think.
It doesn't. Okay, so we'll start with popcorn meter. I'm gonna say 81%, and then I'll say tomato meter critic score. I'll say like 77. I don't know. I'm pansing out here, but Kyle, what do you think?
This is such a. I mean, I don't even fucking know. It's a good
It's
kids
a-
movie.
it's a
Good
cartoon.
movie, but like cartoon, the media doesn't have as much to do with it. I don't think as the fucking like the story, the overall feeling that you get after you watch.
I mean,
it's
it's
a piece of art.
very
good,
heavy.
but it's a good movie though.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say, fuck me, I don't even know. Like critic score. I mean, because it's pretty straightforward. You kind of see what's coming. So critic score probably 60-something%, and then I'm gonna say audience
Probably
score
better than
like.
mine.
Audience score 88 to 90%.
So critic score 75%, audience score 78%.
Okay,
They're
cool.
right next
So I
to it.
was,
You're
yeah,
very-
I was
very-
both close. Yeah.
Threading the needle.
Here's a good one from 2008. Everyone remembers this classic. I picked this one out for a reason. A disaster movie.
Oh.
Back when they were making all those spoof movies, like a superhero movie.
But this was like
a turd
you know,
movie.
like the scary movies.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So this is when they were starting to get egregious and not funny and kind of dumb.
I'll say
So
We'll move it quick.
I'll say like tomato meter critics is like in the teens, like low teens, like 12%.
12%.
And then I'll say tomato meter is like 20%, maybe not even.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say audience is like 35%, and the critics is gonna be like maybe 8%.
8%. So the audience score is 21%. So Andrew, you're right on that one. Fuck. And the tomato meter, 1%.
Holy shit!
So take 10 percentage points off what I said.
Yeah.
But
So that kind of gives you like a rundown of different movies. I know
who was in that movie?
I can't even
Doesn't
remember.
matter.
Yeah, I mean 1%. nothing
Carmen
matters.
Electra was in that.
Of course she was. Dude. She's in a lot of those.
To wrap it up, you use ratings however you want to use it. Don't let anyone tell you to not use them. Don't let anybody tell you to go all in on a rating either. That doesn't mean anything. If you want to watch something or have a strict opinion on something, you have that opinion. You love watching it. Any final thoughts, Kyle?
Yeah, you live in your own fucking world. Nobody else knows what's going on. Like what you like, and don't fucking worry about what other people tell you to like, unless it's us. And you should always listen to what we tell you, because our subjective reality is also yours.
So we hope that you rate this show high. We're 100% on Rotten Tomatoes and 100% in the audience score. I think the first podcast to ever do that. Continue to add to our ratings. Unless you're going to rate us bad, then don't do that. Please don't.
Yeah, please don't all cry.
And we'll see you next time.